Hey guys, Shadow here. So today I'm going to be talking about this Ranulf deck I have. So this is a really nice budget deck for all those budget players out there, and it's also super good. You can probably make this deck for about, I don't know, $20, I guess. And that's pretty good. That's really good actually for this card game, which could be pretty expensive for those living outside of Japan. Anyways, let's get started. So first off, we have 4 copies of our level 1 Ranulf. He's our main character, so we're using 4 copies of him because we don't have a level 5 version or level 4 version of him. So we need to have enough cards to block. You don't have to use 4, you can bump it down to like 2 or 3, but I'm just using 4 for now. And we're also using 4 copies of the level 3 Ranulf. Oh, back to the level 1 first. His ability is actually pretty good. Early on, when your opponent's trying to shoot him down with archers and mages in the back row, he'll actually gain plus 10. So it's good defense early on. Anyway, so we have our level 3 Ranulf. So when you level him up, it won't be a class change because he doesn't have a promotional cost. So you won't get that draw that you usually get. Just keep that in mind. But he is a really good card, and I was like so surprised that he wasn't like the best card ever, but you can kind of see how this deck has flaws, which I'll talk about later. So Ranulf, he gains 10 attack when he's in the front, and he can attack back row cards. So like usual main characters, he'll be the 70 base attack that you want to look for. And when you mill a Fang unit, he'll gain an additional 20 support. 20 support. So Fang units are usually 10 to 20 support, so when you mill a Fang unit, you can get 30 or 40, and since this deck is pretty much 100% Fang units, I believe, I'm not sure if it is 100%, but pretty much he'll always gain that 30 or 40 support, which seems broken, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So yeah. And then we have 4 copies of level 1 Leaf. She's 10 support, but when you mill her, she'll be 30 support when you're attacking, so not a big deal. Her effect allows you to attack your opponent's back row, tome, and staff units. It's a decent effect. And then we have 4 copies of her level 2 Leaf, so she's better than the level 1 one, I think. She has 10 support, which is the downside of it, of course, but when you mill her, when you level her up from the level 1 Leaf, she can actually attack your opponent's back row, kind of like Ranulf, and she'll also gain 10, like Ranulf. So, same effect there, but if you mill a unit that is not a Fang unit, the support will fail. But in this deck, it wouldn't really matter because all your supports are could be Fang units pretty much. Next, we have Anna. So we're using 4 copies of her. She's level 2, and she has 20 support, which is a lot better than some of the other ones that are 10 support. So her ability allows you to tap her and one other unit to move one of your opponent's units, and if she's leveled up, you can move 2 cards. It's a pretty good effect. Usually you're not going to level her up, but when you do, you can move 2 of your opponent's cards, which is a big deal. It's a really easy effect to trigger, and allows you to reuse your Lennies, which are, you'll see, I'll talk about it later. But yeah, she allows you to reuse Lenny's effect, which is usually kind of hard to reuse. And then we have our 4 copies of level 1 Lenny. Anyways, we have 4 copies of her. She's going to be our priest of this deck, and she's a Fang unit with 20 base support. Her effect allows you to get a card back by flipping 1 bond, which is 1 less than the usual cost that you need to heal when she is untapped. So when you play her, she taps herself, and then at the start of your turn, your cards will all untap. So when she untaps, you can get a card back. This is okay because you don't really get to choose when you get to use the effect, and you have to have her survive for the turn, which sometimes is really difficult because she is 10 attack, so anything that battles her is going to kill her pretty much. So you need to find a way to protect her somehow. I don't know if you have a thing to block or something in your hand, but if her effect goes off, it's pretty good because all you need to do is flip 1 bond, which is a lot better. But yeah, we're using 1 copy of her, and then we're using 3 copies of Rayson. So his effect allows you to restand something, kind of like our dancers and stuff, by flipping 2 bonds. You have to use him in a Fang deck though, because if you restand anything that's not a Fang unit, it'll lose 10 attack. In wrapping up our green cards, we have 4 copies of Tabarn. Tabarn's effect is pretty beast if you can get him out, and he's level 5, so earlier you could put him in the bond. But when you can get him out, he boosts himself by 10 for every other Fang unit, and additionally, if he becomes 100 attack, all your other Fang units gain plus 10 as well. Super beastly, and you can definitely finish off the game by playing him on the field. And then we also have 4 copies of Nasala, so his effect allows him to attack far away and does extra damage to flying units. But the second effect is the thing that you really want to use with him. So when you deploy a unit that is a Fang unit other than him or your card that you have on the field, which is going to be your main character. So when you deploy another Fang unit pretty much in this deck, you get to draw a card. No cost. Really easy, nice draw engine going on right there. It's a really good card. And then we have our white section of this deck. So we have 4 copies of level 1 and 4 copies of level 3 Flannel. So when he mills a Fang unit, as his level 1 effect, he gains 10 attack. Pretty good effect. Makes him pretty strong, and all your cards are Fang units, so yeah, he's pretty much going to be 50 base attack. And then we're using 3 copies of the other one, so when you class change him, he gains his first effect, which allows him to gain +10, while you have 2 other Fang units on the field. Brings him up to 70 base attack, and you get a class change, which this deck rarely does, because you usually level up, but yeah, so it brings him to 70 base attack, and if you battle another Fang unit, like a Ranulf deck, if you're having a mirror match, he comes in handy because he'll be 80 base attack with a second ability. And lastly, we have 4 copies of level 1 Kinyu, so when you have a total of 5 cards on the field, you and your opponent, she gains +10, and that's usually going to be the case, so she's almost always going to be 50 base attack. Really good card. Level 1, 50 base attack, really good. And then we have 4 copies of the level 3 one of her, another card you can class change, and whenever a unit is deployed, she gains +10. And then she has a little reborn effect at the start of your turn. Pretty useful for bringing back cards that are just really strong attackers, and you just attack and then it just dies at the end of the turn, and then she'll gain attack from that as well. So as you can see, this whole deck is made up of Fang units, which means Ranulf will always be getting that 30 or 40 support, which is really big, and it's gonna be really hard for your opponent to get over and do damage to you during late game. But the problem is this deck lacks range really hard. There is almost no cards that have range besides your main character, but most of the time you don't want to be using your main character to attack some archer in the back, right? So yeah, that's a huge problem in this deck, because you have to be wasting your Ranulf attacks, which are super strong, on weak cards in the back that you just want to get rid of, like priests. Yeah, so that's what this deck really needs, is more Lagoos that can attack far away, but it's kind of cool that they don't, because it kind of limits how this deck is. Another downside to it is that this deck has really bad support. There's no 30 supports in this deck, and they're all going to be 10 or 20. Although Ranulf is going to be having great supports with his effect, everyone else will be suffering because there's like really terrible supports. No attacks are going to get through with those other characters. And additionally, another place where this deck lacks power is the other Fang units. Other Fang units aren't too great, and when they are, they have really bad support, like I said before. So I think this deck can definitely get better in the future when more Fang units come out, but for right now, there's not too many options you can choose to use in this deck because there's only so many Fang units. Some cards you can use are cards I'll mention in the honorable mentions right now. So Jill can actually be used in this deck, and actually has pretty nice synergy. The first effect allows you to do damage to other decks that use Fang units early on, and she's 30 support. So this deck needs 30 supports, like I said before, and she's a pretty good substitute for that. Her level 3 form actually allows her to gain attack, +20 attack, when you have other Fang units on the field. So she'll be 70 base attack, and she'll have that rescue effect that allows your cards to move around that this deck doesn't have right now. So yeah, you can definitely use level 3 Jill and level 1 Jill just to give that deck the boost. So you can take out the white cards if you want to, and then use Jills instead. And you can also use Marcia, so Marcia has that 30 support that you really want, and also she has rescue, so you can pretty much use her in any deck. Viable option. We have Ralph, that allows you to attack far away. Like I said, deck lacks range, so Ralph is pretty good for just killing off weak cards, and then if you do use Marcia and stuff, you can move him to the back and then use him later on. And of course, because this is a green deck, you can always use our Queen Alencia, 30 support, and she can flip 1 bond and make everything gain +10 for the turn when she attacks. Oh my god, such a good effect. 30 support, you can use her first effect to move things around, but you probably won't be playing her first effect anyways. I mean her level 1 version, so you won't be getting that class change effect, whatever anyways. But she's super good. You can use her in like any green deck. If you can afford her, you can go ahead, but then it does take this deck out of the whole budget deck thing, so that's why I didn't put it in the deck. And like my old videos, here is a overview of the deck list in case you wanted to see it. And as always, if you have anything you want to ask or have any comments how to make this deck better, feel free to leave it in the description. I will read it and I will reply. I will see you guys next time. Bye!